Good morning. Let's get into it. There we go. All right. So, where we last left off, I think we were finishing up the settings page, converting it to Redux. And there was a to-do left over saying that this was going to be the next component to convert to using Redux. However, after the stream last week, I did see that the UI tests are showing that the data's not showing up in the UI afterwards, which we can also see looking at Storybook. Like that, there should be data here. Like we have, oh, that's a lot. In the story, there's a bunch of mock data using tRPC MSW, mock service worker, to feed this data in. And so prior to the change, all of this data here was showing up in our story, but it's not after. And I was thinking about this morning, thinking about why that was, and I think I have an explanation. So we have a dispatch inside of a use effect in our app component that fetches settings. But this only happens when this component is mounted, which is not in play in our story. So the thing I need to figure out, I guess, is how to dispatch fetch settings inside of the story, which I may have to look at the there's a render. I may have to look at the docs for Storybook to figure out a good way of doing that. Let's see, Storybook. Documentation. Maybe guides. We are on 7.0. I think a thing that needs to happen at some point is we're on like the 7.0 beta version or release candidate, whatever it was at the time. The last time I looked at our dependencies. Storybook. Yeah, we're just on Storybook next. So this was like 7.0.0 beta or release candidate or something at the point in time this was set up. I might change that to just be 7 instead of next. But one thing at a time. So writing stories. So there's a play function. Maybe. No, that's, I think, more for interaction with the component. We would need to do something that kind of wraps. There is a render function. Yeah, there's args. There's decorators. Potentially, I could just do something in. Yeah, I could do that. I mean, I could do this. Same thing that we're doing in an app. Maybe. Does that? Ta-da! Right, so just like an app, we're using the React Redux provider to put the store into the context. However, that works behind the scenes. We're doing the same thing in this decorator for the story, and we're using use effects to say basically when the story is mounted to dispatch this from settings action, which then, behind the scenes, if we look at the settings slice, we have some async thunks that are calling our tRPC procedures that are pulling the data in, and those are then being intercepted by mock service worker. And so the query that's being done, get user settings, is being handled by this mock that's returning this data, which then in turn is coming back and getting put into the store and then is showing up in the UI here. So that should fix our failing UI test. So we should see that here in a minute. Okay. I think I'm going to rename this PR. There we go. The goal is to basically, I don't know if I'm not going to solve offline. Well, we're gonna make a data store that can handle in the future being able to do have offline support. Which this is the breakdown of all the things I was thinking about, which I'm not going to read here, but all the things I was thinking about that eventually motivated me to move away from this custom store that I had written. Not really a store, but a thing using RxJS to do action dispatch, and replace that with using Redux. And yeah, so in the meantime, while that's running, let's move on to the next thing, which was the plan was to do this diary component next. Okay, so the next component to convert to Redux is what was written last time, and then leave this here for now once we convert the rest of the components. So basically, whatever the diary basic, if anything, then come back and right. So we're gonna leave the add food to meal dialogue stuff to later. Which is going to be fun. That means we'll have two kinds of actions happening until this gets converted. But anyway, and then what's going on in diary basic? That's this file, which is just called diary here. And this is not a connected component. You know, it's getting its props. So is there anything going on in diary nav? No. Okay, so I don't think we need to touch that. What about diary meal? Yep, here we go. So here we have a connected diary meal, which is to say that we're using our RxJS store to be able to tie this into kind of the shared state and the backend API calls and that sort of thing. And then we're just wrapping around this diary meal component, which is down here further. Lots of stuff. I don't think any of the subcomponents then are connected to the store. I am wrong. Okay, so diary meal entry is because it can trigger a dialogue. I may just change this to take a prop for this and pass this in. That way we don't have so many connected components and make this a little bit easier to deal with. Have to think about that a little bit. Let's look at, are there any other components here? Maybe let's look at the imports. Meal type, lots of MUI, emotion, store units. Fairly certain that these are not connected components at all. That would be pretty odd. Okay. So, does it make sense? So what else is there anything else that uses this component besides diary meal? No. Okay. So what is the intent here? Right, so let's see. Diary meal entry on long press. Unclick icon button. Okay. So this button is visible if we are not, essentially not mobile. So really this on long press is kind of a more options sort of action. And then okay. Do I even want to provide, like I could have the props coming from the parent to contain, it would not be called on long press, but kind of like on options or something, I don't know. And so we would be using diary meal entry here. And so we would basically what I'm thinking is that like we could take these handlers, these callbacks, and implement them inside of the connected diary meal component. And then just get rid of this as a connected component altogether. And so this would just be yeah, just a normal functional component. I think that will be better. Well, while I've been thinking, okay, Grammatic has some updates for us. This will be, yeah, the floating action button has slightly moved. It seems to do that every single time. At some point I'll maybe do something about that, but that's fine. And then what is different here? These are actually selected now. Also, I removed the energy setting last time around because I didn't have a solution for how we were going to represent that. So I figured I would just remove it for now. So this all looks good. All right, so and then yeah, job done. Didn't I click that? Okay. Okay. Not going to merge this though, because again, I think the idea is going to be that we're going to do all the Redux stuff in this pull request. Okay, so I think I'm pretty happy with the idea of moving the kind of these details upwards, just so that we have all of the store action stuff in one place. I think that's going to make sense. So what we're going to do, we're not going to export that anymore. We'll just export our basic component. And we will also take these signatures for those functions and put them directly onto diary mail entry props. But we'll give them slightly different names. So how do I want to do this? Because I do want to pass the same information. I guess I can just say what is the type of ID here? Just the number? Right. So now, basically making it so that this component will call on click, or not on press, maybe on more options. I don't know. Let's not on go to entry on edit. There you go. Okay, so on more options. Meal ID. Yeah, that's right. And we're just missing those props because we weren't using them here before because they were being used by the connected wrapper. There we go. Cannot find name on more options. Yes, you can. It's right there. There you go. And then on click becomes on edit. And same thing. Okie dokie. So then diary meal is now not quite right. So the expectation here is we're going to provide some functions in connected diary meal. Basically these functions, except they're going to be like handle more options. Okay, so we have an ID, a meal ID, and a date. Yep, okay. Let us create a type or an interface. Entry identifiers, I guess, is a name. And sure. And we will export that. On more options equals that. On edit entry equals handle. There you go. Oops. Of course, we don't have a router, but we will. There we go. Yep. And takes an ID. Yep. Yep. All right. Can this infer? No. Okie dokie. So that gets us part of the way there. Now we just need to update our use of diary meal entry to say on more options equals handle more options. which we need to make available. Except it's not called handle, it's just called on more options. There we go. And then at this point, we can just get rid of this component completely and start removing imports we don't use anymore. Or use them, as the case may be. All right, so I think, do we have a okay, it's diary meal. Let's refresh. Okay, editable version. We have actions. We do. Okay, on more options. If we click it, we see on edit entry. So that all looks good. Okay. All right. So that looks good. Okay, so now we have this now completely not connected component in diary meal entry. So now we just have, so we have this to deal with. Connected diary meal. To do, move this to use an action. Right, so right now, okay, so diary meal is used inside a diary. And we are passing on add food search to this. Yeah, that is kind of weird. Like, this could actually just be inside of here since we're dealing with our store anyway. I mean, alternatively, just take all this and move it up, but I don't think we want to do that either. What is going on inside a diary? I mean, this is... Why is this like this? I mean, we're wrapping just this one component, which is just a wrapper around this component with very long type definition. So what is the purpose of this then? Okay, like what are we doing with date? Okay, we're doing some actions with it. We are then passing it on through, on go to date as well. Okay. Where is this coming from? Okay, like we have a page. Oh yeah, it's not happy with us. An RxJS page that then uses diary. And we're... Okay, so the reason we're doing this like this is because depending on which page we start from, we want the behavior to be different. I think. Right, so diary date. If we're looking at a particular user's diary, then we want to, keep that diary user, target user slug. Keep that like that. So yeah, this diary component is being used directly by the Next.js page structure. And that's why this is like this. And then we use diary basic, which is just this diary component. Oh, right. So there's the level of indirection, right? So before I was looking at diary meal, which is wrapped in a connected component. And then this is diary. So this is not referring to this. There's a... Yeah, okay. So that mostly makes sense in terms of how it's structured, I think. Okay. So what is going to be more interesting or more productive to convert to Redux first? Right. We have diary meal. Let's make some space here. So in our connected diary meal, we are getting user settings, not to be confused with user profile. Yeah, what is in user profile? What are we using this for? User. Okay, that's user. So I think this is just like the user's name. That's sort of those sorts of things. It's a much smaller payload than user settings. User settings is the thing we were looking at on the settings page, where it has like what kind of units to use, like body weight, all those details. And then, okay, so we're getting the user profile, and we're getting the diary meals. And this is part of the same information that it's actually in user setting. Wait, is this? What is this? What is a meal in this context? Type of meal entry. Type of meal entry. Right, so this is like a day's meal. The thing that I was thinking about is I have to confirm that. So get diary meals. What do you do? This is list consumptions by me. Okay, right. So a consumption here is the word that I chose to use to represent an instance of a set of foods that one is consuming at a mealtime. Because naming things is hard. And uh, so, okay, so this is actually getting on this date, what did you eat? And who are you? And it's getting those things, it's ensuring we have that information so that then we can pass that to this connected diary component. Now, could said connected diary component, or, oh no, this is pure. This is just the functional component that is taking the information and saying for each meal, show that information and providing the nav. Okay. And then we also have this wrapper that is then invoking this action, dispatching out using the old store. So we could create a new slice in our Redux store. So this get user profile. What are we actually doing here? Do we have a profile tRPC? Yeah, get user profile is a procedure that we have. Yeah. That gets the user record. And really it just gets the name and the ID, which is interesting. Do we need this? You know, we are currently, essentially, as soon as you open the app, if you're logged in, it's getting the user settings. And that already should have the name and ID. So is this even necessary? Will this be necessary? Right, so we have Well, I think another interesting thing here is that we grab the user, but we don't use the ID. We just use the name. So I think like we should just be able to read from the settings state the name of the user here. I will be right back. All right, back to it. What was I saying? Right, so we can probably just get the name from the existing, what we already have in the store. And then the only thing that we would need to add here for this component is to get the list of meals. So we need to add that to the store. And then for on add food search, we can probably for now punt this by moving this downwards to wherever it is that we're actually calling this, which is probably here. Right, so then this prop goes away. And then we get rid of this. This is complaining about, oh right, because the intermediate component. Right. Okay, so we'll call this handle. And that goes there. Yep. And then in our component here, which all it's doing is just passing through the prop, we can now get rid of it. Okay, so things get a little simpler, although we don't have JS imported in this file, so we can import that, and then everything's happy again. Then, what I was thinking of doing is, could we just have a selector? Const select meals is an idea. Select name, create selector. Yep, from the settings. And I don't think we want to do anything here. Like in our select settings, we're like merging settings and unsaved settings. I don't think we ever care about unsaved settings except on the settings page. So if we do something like that, then also this is weird. User.name. Isn't user.name just, why do we call this username then? Whatever. It's just being used to put some text on the page that represents who the user is. So username equals user.name. Sure, whatever. But of course we're getting rid of this. And instead we are going to, okay, how do we use the store again? Settings. Is it this one? We just use selector. So we can do something like const username equals use selector. Select name. Doesn't know what to do about that. All right, so we can get rid of some imports as well that we don't need. And then this becomes this. Progress. Do we have... Yeah, there's a placeholder for kind of the top level diary page, but that's not actually set up yet. So it's kind of hard to see if we're making progress. Let's see. Let's do that, and then let's find. I guess what we can do is we can make a story for this component here. Diary.stories.tsx. And we can start by just copying the one for settings, although it'll be very wrong. I mean, I guess we still want to mock get user settings, so I guess that's fine. We're going to change this though to be diary, type of settings, type of diary, I mean, it's not happy about something. Components, templates, missing default export. We are. Okay, let me just stop and restart Storybook. Sometimes that helps. So, oh, right. I was going to the wrong place anyway. I needed to be here because in our template section. State is undefined. Fair. All right. So this isn't going to work right now because we are providing our Redux store, but the component is still using the other store, the old store. So that is not going to work. Also, we can pull this out, which means we can take that out. Okay. So there's some hope that we'll be able to see something here once we have meals information in our store in a new slice, which I think is the next step. I guess the other thing is that then the diary meal component, which is rendered inside of this, is going to actually be, well, the actions are going to be problematic, but we'll be able to get rid of this and just use the settings from the settings slice. I guess the move consumption result. Right. So move consumption result is giving us information back about the outcome of what happens when you do this action, which opens a dialog, and then you interact with it, and you can get state back through here, which then is fed through here. It's pretty weird, honestly. But yeah, so let's get rid of this stuff for now and figure out how this new slice is going to work. Okay, this is where we are using the slices. Okay, so let me retrace this again, right? So we are getting meals result from state.diary meals. Elsewhere, this get diary meals is being defined. Pretty sure it's defined as the result of this observable that's being built out. Ultimately, it's the result of calling this query diary.list consumptions by meal, which gives us this fancy looking object, which has a list of meals in it. Okay. So list consumptions by meal as a procedure takes a user ID. This is so that, assuming the targeted user, if the user ID is provided, the targeted user's diary is visible to this user. We can see that user's diary, or it's our own if it's not provided. Then we can look at meals for the targeted date. So one way this could look is we could have a slice for meals, a Redux store slice that would just be a list of meals, I suppose. And then as you navigate around, you would replace that with a different list depending on what day you were looking at. I don't know that I want to do that though. I think maybe I would want an object, something basically where we can say, another way this could look would be just a list of all of the meal entries, right? So no, that wouldn't work because we are passing back, I guess, technically some redundant information, right? So this meal information, the ID and the label, is also in the settings. Yeah, it's in the settings because those are kind of the defined what meals. Oh, for the current user. I mean, there's the other thing, right? Is that this is not just this user's meals, but other users' meals that might also be passing through this slice. But we could just have like an array, and then we would put every meal that we see, and maybe we add the user ID and the date. Basically taking something like what we're returning here and tagging it with the date and the user ID. And then to do, this should be something or null, not sure. Yeah. All right, because it's anyway, moving on. Think about that later. So this could be, you could do that and just have like just an array of all the data. maybe ordered in some way. Um, Feels kind of weird to do. You could also have like some kind of map structure where maybe the key is the user ID, and then inside of that is an object or some kind of map where then the keys are maybe dates, or strings representing dates, and then the value would be an array of meals. I mean, you could structure that further. We have the ID, so you could do it that way. But this, maybe not, because at least the way we're returning the meals from this operation is ordered by start hour. We're not providing start hour in this, and there's not a way to see that information, that meal information, for other users, so you wouldn't be able to reconstruct that anyway if we stored it in the front end, without preserving the order of the entries for the meals. So what does any of that matter? Well, and it returns, any, sure. So what I was just thinking about is, I don't know a ton about all the best practices and all the things. I've not really used Redux a lot, and this is kind of why I wanted to do this conversion, is because it seemed like Redux would solve a lot of problems, as I mentioned before, that I was thinking about, how to solve. And it's been quite a while since I've used Redux. I know now there's the Redux Toolkit, which didn't exist the last time I had a kind of greenfield project where I was looking to add Redux to. So, one, I'm saying that I'm not an expert by any means at using this library and this tooling. But one of the things I was just wondering about is, can this use selector be parameterized? So, in other words, do we have to define everything about how we're trying to find the data that we're looking for in the state here? Or is the intent, is it possible to use selector and then have it pull information? But looks like no. So it looks like there are two arguments here. Selector, which is us, the selector that we're providing here, and the second argument is an equality function. Allows you to customize the way the selected state is compared to determine whether the component needs to be re-rendered, which is interesting, but not what I'm looking for. I mean, I do think the intent here is, it seems like the intent here is that you want to use, like, we wouldn't want to use select settings in this component because we don't want all the settings, so we want a selector, like select name, that is going to kind of give us the most narrow piece of the data from the store. So what I was thinking about is the fact that if we have a slice that has all of this meals information that the front end has seen, and there's another bridge that we'll have to cross around how much data we're keeping in the store and purging it, especially in kind of the use case I want to eventually support, where we have like an offline mode and we are keeping data. Yeah, I don't know. Another possibility would be to just have... I don't think it's going to be the case that we will need to show multiple meals in the UI at once. Like, if you're looking at the diary, either yours or someone else's, we're not going to have a case where we're pulling... There are no plans for a UI where we're showing interesting. Where was... Oh. I just realized something completely unrelated. I'll come back to that in a minute. But basically, there aren't any plans to show like multiple meals at the same time. So maybe it's not necessary. Maybe we could just have a slice that has... It's just a list of the currently viewed meals. And then the question of, well, if we're in offline mode and you've already seen this information, how do you see it again, could be solved kind of lower level, where we use a service worker to intercept, just like we're using mock service worker to mock our tRPC calls. We could provide a service worker that is basically handling the caching of those entries, and essentially kind of doing the offline mode from a read perspective there via caching, and then where the offline mode, where the juicy bits are of doing offline mode with Redux would be around any kind of actions that are being taken, getting them queued to be applied/merged once the user goes back online. So I think for now, let's kind of do the simplest thing that can work, which is going to be to have a slice that's going to have the list of meals for the current view. That being said, I realize the problem with the change we've already made to this component. So we take this user ID, and the thing that caught my eye is, oh, we're not using user ID anymore. What's up with that? Well, if we go back in time a little bit to how we were getting user, which I think we have to go back a little bit further to before we added the selector, because we were doing this. So this component is intended both to look at the current user's diary, but also other users. So this is not the current user. This is the user whose user ID that we were being passed from Next.js, from route, path, whatever information. So that change that I had just made, it's not going to work, because that's only going to give us the name of the current user reading from the settings slice. So we need to do something else. Something. Actually, let me go back to my notes around what our intent was here with... did I link? This is supposed to be for 120. There we go. I never linked the issue. Okay. Anyway. So things I'm trying to solve. Have go offline, online, trigger an action. When we go offline, start buffering actions. Showing UI when we go offline, indicate sync status. When we go offline, don't send events. Yep. When we are offline, actions that would trigger network actions go online. So a lot of going online, going offline, actions, yada, yada, yada. Use direct queries for network fetch. Use service worker to provide cache. So I'm glad my thinking, my thinking in this seems consistent anyway. Use service workers to provide cache for offline for network fetch. Don't use action state data for work queries. So that's kind of what I was thinking about here. What if we are only interested in data to show in this particular view, and especially if we are going to take the information from this component and we are going to pass it to our child component, that's going to then pass it to a child component, and then it's going to just cascade. It's going to thread its way through to whatever component is actually going to render the data out. And we're not trying to, if this could actually use the settings, I guess I'll keep the select name here, although we're not going to use it here. But do I need any of this? Instead, we could do something like meals. Let's see, we need to import that. Is this? Yeah, this is get diary meals. Yeah, this is not right. This is diary dot list consumptions by meal, use query, date and user ID. That would be redundant. And then how is this supposed to work? We don't have any kind of loading indicator or anything here. Meals does not exist on type. Yada, 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 yada. Does it not? Oh, because, right, okay. Yeah, no. Meals. All right. And then we just do the same thing for the other one, right? Because this information is not something we need to read from multiple places. It's just going back to the same kind of thought process that I was thinking through a few minutes ago, where, okay, we're going to create a slice in the Redux store. what information is going to go there. It's just going to be what we're going to show in the current view. Why do we need to store it? If we want to do caching for offline, we can do that lower level. And I think that applies to both kind of this user profile thing that we just want the name of the user whose diary we're viewing. So we don't need to use Redux here for this. I mean, we could, create a thunk that calls our tRPC procedure to pull the data and stick it in the store, and we'd read from the store. But if we're just going to take the data in the component where we're like, give us, here's where I know I need the information, but I'm just going to hand it to this diary component that is then going to render it out. It'd be, if there were more levels of indirection and I was not going to pass in meals and user information as props, then maybe that would make more sense. But this is not that complicated, not that much indirection that would be necessary, so I don't know why I would do that. And so we can just do the same thing here for the user profile. So we can say user result equals tRPC dot account, yes, dot get user profile. Yep. It knows. Right. So now let's get rid of all of that and that. So I think this just has like an ID and a name. Maybe make this even simpler. Is it great? No. One of the things that I did kind of like with the way I was doing the store, sort of store, that I had with RxJS is that is it an events.ts? I did have kind of a thing where I could take all of the different observables that are responsible for calling all these different tRPC endpoints, and be able to basically combine them to see if any were loading and have a global loading status and error status. Is that good? I don't know. It did mean, I could have a loading indicator somewhere, regardless of what component was doing what, and we would see like if there was a loading, if we were loading, or if there was an error and those sorts of things. That doesn't really solve the issue of like, okay, well, we don't have the username yet or the list of meals. We should show a skeleton. We should show something indicating loading status, and so we're not doing that here. And so that's a to-do. A thing to improve upon this later. But yeah, this is, I think, better in that it is simpler, more direct, and does what we need it to do, maybe. I still think okay, diary for loading. We could maybe improve upon our story here by also providing a mock for a few things, I suppose. Right, we're not we don't get user settings here. We will eventually list consumptions by meal, so we'll want to have this information. So we'll let Copilot do its thing. I don't think it's consumptions though. No, it's entries. Good guess, Copilot. It's all wrong. It's all wrong. Anyway. Yeah, get user profile is a thing we want to mock. Let's see how close it gets. Yep. Yeah. I mean, there should be an ID too, but 1, 2, 3. That should be something. Does that... Oh, data is undefined. Whoops. In connected diary meal. Okay, so that's an issue of then when we get into wherever connected diary meal is. Got a few too many open things. So in the thing in here. Right, so we are trying to use the store and that doesn't work. But that at least means that we're getting as far as like, oh, there are meals and we're iterating over them and we're using the diary meal component in this component that we're using from this component. So that's good. Can't believe it's been an hour 20. Okay. Is there anything we need to do here? Anything else? I think we've done enough here. And then we have our diary intermediate component. I don't think there's anything for us to do here. So we have our story and we have our diary meal. And you know, we're doing some things here. We are getting user settings. Why are we getting user settings? We need user settings to be able to pass into diary meal. But of course we already have that, right? We just need to get it from the store. And then move consumption result, I don't know. Result string. Interesting. I think what I like to do for now, just so that we can see something, is to essentially like comment out the actions. So we'll just make this so these things don't do anything for now. And then, you know, we'll get rid of the use effect, and this is just going to be to do. That's not happy about that because this is supposed to be this results type. Status, and yeah. So results status is success and data is a thing. So we can make something that looks like that. All right, because that doesn't make TypeScript happy though, because we need to tell it, yeah, this is definitely that type. Okay, and then we are going to get rid of this. We're going to get rid of this. we are going to remove the things we no longer need. We don't need use effect. Whoops. Don't need use effect anymore. We don't need our custom store. I guess we don't need JJS. And we're going to say user settings equals use selector. Select settings. Okay. And that okay. Unit type labels, subunit type is undefined, is progress. Convert.ts. Okay. Where is that? Okay. Convert.ts from united value. Where are we using united value? Let me clear console and refresh. Yeah, same error. That's fine. Okay. Do we use unit? Yeah, we do use united value here. And yeah, is united value somehow connected? No. So what's the problem? It maybe doesn't like value? That's strange. Unit type label subunit type is undefined. Okay, so the unit type being passed in. But these are all enums. And convert.ts, which I think is inside of united value, line 12. Oh, right. So this is inside of convert.ts. This get unit type label, and then unit type label subunit type subunit system. Unit type label subunit type is undefined. So this unit type whatever it is not present in unit type labels. Really? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And these all exist. Well, that seems odd. Ah, my fake entry doesn't have a serving unit. And that's the problem. got some issues. Probably because this data, the way, all right, because like this is actually label. Copilot is sometimes hit or miss when it comes to generating data. I mean, I get calories right. That's something. There we go. Egg. Don't we have? I think there's another place where there's a story that has. Here we go. Here's some real entries. I grab that. Put that in here. Whoops. Right. This actually uses the enum. Yeah. There. Yeah. Yeah, we're not passing in actions here, but that's fine. It's a thing. I mean, it loads. It shows data again, and so this is our top level. This is our template level component, which then uses diary meal and diary nav, which then uses other atoms underneath it. But yeah, so this doesn't use Redux, but it doesn't need to. And yeah, we're just pulling the data in. And I mean, it does in that we're getting the settings that we were already loading. Basically, when the app loads, we're just reading it out of the store. So it is using Redux there. And then all the stuff here for handling, so add food search. So that's like when you click this button, handle more options, which is, this is, I think, a view. This is not the editable view because I think it doesn't believe that the diary that we're looking at is our own diary because we're not passing in the right things for that. If it was, we'd have a little ... here. And this would be clickable as well. So that's a thing we can't see happening. But if the ... was there, then that would run this, which would open a dialog. And so all this stuff needs to be converted to Redux. I think will make sense to have basically the information about what additional things we're trying to do in the Redux store will make sense. So right now, how this works is that where, when we call actions that open dialog, this is events.ts. Is that where that is? So we have, like, we're calling next on a behavior subject, so that we're basically pushing an event onto an observable that then propagates through and then makes its way to this pipe where we're filtering for these specific dialogue actions, and then we are doing various things, and there are other places that are looking at those observables to dictate what they do. Excuse me. So like in I don't know what the name of the component is, but there are some components that are basically present but not visible. I think is it under app.ts in pages? No, layout. Yeah, so the meal add food dialog, meal edit dialog, and logged food actions. So these components you don't see, but they are looking for those events to happen on certain observables via this use dialog state hook. Right, so this hook is looking for this information to then tell it, oh, is it open for the given dialog type, and other information to be able to hook back into the observables. So all this is going to go away. Instead, we will keep kind of what dialogue we want to show and parameters to it and those sorts of things in Redux. Something that I don't know. Let's see, where are we at in terms of files changed? A few things. But thinking about what I want to do in terms of putting in some to-dos. So in one of these files, somewhere, is it in diary meal? Yeah. So we have meal update food. So to do, convert this next. Okay, so then meal update food. So this logged food actions dialog is the place that, basically this gets shown when that action is run. So I think we want to look at converting this to do. Yeah, Copilot knows. Convert this to use Redux. A questions. Is that a question? Do we want to have separate slices for each dialogue? Exactly. Okay. So I'm gonna leave this right here. This will give us a lot of context next time around. But I think this is some good progress, and I think we're going to have to stop here just because I think moving forward is going to take a big chunk of time, and I don't want to... I think this is just a good place to stop for today. A little bit shorter than planned, but I think some good progress and a good place to start off for next time around. All right. Working on it. Be working on this again same time next Sunday. Till then, bye-bye.